The FRT-1 is basically the very first Floyd Rose ever made, and it was made in the Fernandez factory and started production right around 1981, and it was on the early 1982 Fernandez guitars, and from what I've read and gathered, it was only in production for about 6 months. And it was replaced by the FRT-3, and the FRT-1 is basically the design that Floyd Rose had his early prototypes on. He gave one prototype to Eddie Van Halen, the fourth one. He also gave one of his prototypes, which by the way looked like what you see here is the FRT-1, to Neil Schon of Journey and some Jimi Hendrix cover band impersonator. This is Eddie Van Halen with his Charvel Bumblebee guitar, probably around 1980-ish, 1981, and he has a prototype FRT-1 on it, not a production one, and I read that he got number 4, the 4th prototype. Charvel recreated the FRT-1 especially for the new release of the Bumblebee Tribute guitar, released just in 2019. This is not an original FRT-1, it's a recreation. I'm not sure if Eddie's was originally chrome and wore down like this, or he had it like this, but this is a recreation, not an original FRT-1 or prototype. I never thought Eddie had an FRT-1 on his Frankenstrat. This one looks like it's some gold one. I'm not sure if this is legit, but I'm sure some Eddie Van Halen guy will let me know if this is real or not. Here you see the Neil Schon model and the Van Halen model from the 1982 Fernandez catalog. The LG-135NS is Neil Schon with the Les Paul FRT-1. Only briefly for 6 months, then at the 1983 it had a FRT-3. And then you have this is really interesting. This is a totally illegal Fernandez Bumblebee copy with an FRT-1, which is pretty cool. But of course, once Eddie Van Halen found out about this, I'm sure it was shot down pretty quick, and I would imagine these are pretty rare guitars. Other guitars that sported the FRT-1 was ST-130, 160, FE-135, and EX-145. Again, this is only very briefly in early 1982, and I would imagine most of these trims have been taken off these guitars and sold separately by now. Also note the incredible price of these things. It was 58,000 yen, which is equivalent to $580 US. I'm not sure if the yen was as strong as it was now, but that's a lot of money back then. Below I have a link with a blog with a guy who used to work on these in the old Fernandez plant, and he mentioned that they're expensive, but they sold like crazy. This is from the Japanese 1982 Fernandez catalog. And you can see this is all hand-drawn, but they show the Edward Van Halen Bumblebee guitar and the Neil Schon model with the FRT-1 described and everything. Here are the guitars from 1982 catalog, the Japanese catalog hand-drawn. These guitars also had the FRT-1 for a brief, short period of time in early 1982. These next pictures from AXN Guitars. I'm not affiliated with him at all, but he has a lot of pictures that are pretty good for this kind of thing. Here's an FRT-1, so you can see the saddles are somewhat primitive, and there is no Floyd Rose logo on any of it. And I believe these saddles, the blocks, are locking saddles. They're T-blocks, so they don't fall out. This is a very special locking nut, and only with the FRT-1. None of the other FRTs had a locking nut quite like this. It's similar to the humpback saddles that I'm going to talk about later on, the FRT series in Fernandez. This one, as you can see on the top where you screw down, it's flat across there. It's not a full semicircle, it's kind of more flat. This is designated to the FRT-1 only. It seems in the back of the lock nut, it does not say 4508 like it says in a lot of the Fernandez humpback saddle locking nuts. This one, it says nothing on the back, which I believe this is the case for all the FRT-1 locking nuts. It has the neoprene washer and nut, which was very common on a lot of the early Floyd Roses at this time, made by Fernandez. Here's an example of a gold FRT-1. Note that the pivot points around this area have screw base, which means they screw right into the wood, and they do not have the threaded inserts like they have in the later 80s Floyd Roses. This is an example of a left-handed Floyd Rose FRT-1. I found this in the Osaka Fernandes blog, and I can't quite catch everything that's said because of translation, but it's kind of funny actually. It sounds like they made a left-handed model, but they had trouble making a left-handed nut work, or they did not make a left-handed nut, or something around that, but it's quite interesting. The FRT-1 was essentially replaced by the Floyd Rose FRT-3, which is kind of a more refined version of that, and I'm going to talk about that in a later video. But also be sure to catch the FRT-2 video, which talks about essentially the very first ever licensed Floyd Rose, but it wasn't really a license.